you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Deku Enters Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Raven 716 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. This wasn't what neither Splinter Hamato Yoshi or Kirby O'Neil accepted to happen or really believe. The thought of their children having quirks. From what Splinter knew, he and his humanoid turtle sons were mutated into what they are now. A man turned into a rat, living in the sewers of New York City. By a freaky accident, lived for years and years in secrecy, training his children in art and ways of ninjutsu, becoming the protectors of New York City itself. Learned to live and stay in the shadows, now was being offered and informed about coming out of that life so his sons could attend a school for those like themselves. In Japan, the birthplace of himself and family, his old life before coming here to New York. How long had been away for this to happen? Well, living in the sewers could do that. His sons, yes, his sons seem rather surprised by this, especially by the man who came all the way from Japan to offer the invention. Also, throwing a bonus, Splinter seemingly having a quirk himself could come back and live as he once did, even having his old home back. And offered a position at this school to teach. Everything was like package deal. Splinter wasn't sure he wanted this. His sons going to this school where they would be trained to use their quirk and should they choose to become heroes. They've faced danger before. The only difference with this one is they'd be exposed to the whole world, and well, he wasn't sure he was ready for that. Even if the thought of returning back home was oh so sweet. He wondered. Just as Kirby wondered, this man, Mr. Aizawa, who sat across from him on the floor in his apartment. A worn-out looking man, his unkempt appearance made one wonder if he lived on the street. With his messy, shoulder-length black hair and light facial hair, eyes that drooped, even at the sweet lemonade that was kindly placed before him by Kirby's youngest daughter. That just looked nothing like the man or his eldest daughter, who at least had her father's ginger hair color and blue eyes. Though clearly inherited her mother's looks, she didn't even look like the other man that stood behind them, wearing sharp black suit and sunglasses to match, and hair for that matter. A face so stoic it was hard to tell if he was a wall or not. Yeah, she looked like none of them. Polite-looking face, long, wavy pink hair, a sort of fuchsia color reaching mid-back. Unlike her sister who was fair skin, she had more a tan complexion. A bronze one, blue eyes nope, golden yellow ones, bright ones, that just seemed to naturally smile and remain open and fresh. She was shorter than her sister, befitting for one her age, while she just a bit shorter, but still a healthy height and also size, body-wise, that made Shota grunt at the thought of his students, a certain perverted one that would have a field day with her many assets, and other making a mental note to give her a much larger shirt should she choose to come to the school. Damn, Shota's eyes fall to the sweet lemonade that innocently waited for his lips to drink it. If that wasn't taunting enough, his eyes slide to the two blondie brownies resting on the saucer just a few inches away from the lemonade. His fingers twitched to take one, but he resisted, grudgingly resisted. He wasn't here for snacking. He was here on recruitment. Well, more so an invite for the two O'Neil daughters, for their quirks, which was still rather of a shocker to the two. Cause from what Shota heard and was told, apparently. The eldest April is the product of genetic tampering in her family's DNA throughout generations, which is why she has her powers, moving things with her mind, as she demonstrated to him in sensitivity beyond that of the normal mind, instantly knowing his desire to just take a drink of the lemonade. So, she could read minds. For the youngest, May, apparently her history is that she was built, artificially created. Soul and all shared some of her sister's mental energy, which provided her with her own powers, though Shota believed it to be her own. She didn't read minds. No. Could she move things? In some sort of way. Did she sense things? Yeah, she could, though, as she demonstrated, emit or produce energy of some kind. Whatever it was, it happened. Both sisters seemed to have some control over their powers. Good enough for Shota. Made it settled. Just like he did with Splinter, Yoshi Hamoto passed the same letter to them. To attend UA High School in Musutafu, Japan. To get a better understanding of their quirks and train to becoming heroes. If of course they chose to. Shota threw in the fact if they wanted to come, accommodations would be made for them to live in Japan. The school kindly would provide them a place to live. Simple living, most likely an allowance, depending. The uncertainty wrinkled on Kirby's brow spread everywhere on his face, while the other man remained solid, unreadable. Looking at the letter again, Kirby's eyes wavered. His daughters would many miles away in another country. Away from him, away from home. The plus side, they'd get better control over their powers and help others outside of the shadows. Make a difference, something any parent would be proud of. It was evenly weighed evenly. What to do, what to choose. His daughters, they seem happy at the thought, especially knowing the invite was extended to their mutant friends. Especially the youngest, who floated at the thought. Literally she did, just floated from her spot into the air. At least Kirby thought they wouldn't fully be alone. Showed up patiently for either parent to decide the course of action they wished to take. The choice they would make for their children, for their future. The sun rose, casting night away, making way for the day to begin. Bring warmth, melting the chill away. A simple kettle steamed and whistled. Curtains pulled and fastened back, allowing morning light in for a new day. A special new day. The bird's song seemed merrier than usual. Turning the flame down, remove the kettle completely and fill 2 cups. Adding 2 bags of tea. Actually, thinking about it, get out another one and fill it. Add another bag. Watch the clear color turn to a reddish brown. The scent and aroma mixed leaves filled the area. Turning back around, take out a skillet, add some oil, allow it to simmer a bit. While it did that, a bowl was brought from the cabinet. About 4 eggs cracked and broken. Using a whisk them till it turned light, a fluffy. Pour them into the sizzling skillet. Watch them cook rather fast. Using a rubber sepulture, fold them here and over. Adding some things, adding flavor. Turn the heat off, allowing the skillet to finish cooking them. Leaving that, open the fridge, ponder for a moment what to do next. What to make next. This was a special day after. It was hard not smile joyfully at the thought. One could easily lose track being caught up in such things. Now, back to what needed to be taken out the fridge. What was needed? There was the tea, the eggs, what else? Counting mentally inside, while mouthing the words and items, it springs to mind. Of course, reaching and take it out. Gritting. This was needed. But wait, was there time? Glancing at the clock, see that it was good, cause this breakfast had to be good. Very good. Would there be time to make homemade syrup or even better treats? Yes, what a good idea. That was best to do. It was to show kindness and warmth. Also, it was just nice to do. The idea and thought in mind, began to take out the required ingredients and items needed. Now, where was that address? Izuku thought, following the GPS directions given to him on his phone. It said it was at least just 100 feet close. Yet, he couldn't see it, better yet find it. Was this even the right way? Beginning to question, while also pressing for time. He didn't want to be late. Then again, he didn't want to be rude either. Better yet, he didn't want to just up and leave. After all, he was given this mission by Shota himself. And as hero in the making, it was his duty to help others. No matter really the reason or what for. Even if it did seem a bit well. Looking back at the directions, reading them. Did he miss a turn or something? Cause he was not seeing anything by that address really, or for that matter anyone matching the description he was given along with pictures. Nothing. Great. Just great. Nevertheless, he kept searching. He'd find them and introduce himself. Welcome them to Japan and UA High. They would be starting today. It was great knowing there was going to be new additions to the school. He was more excited about their quirks, though only having a bit of knowledge about it from what Shota gave him. It still sounded cool. Not to mention they came from America, New York City. If that wasn't interesting enough, what they were doing being before coming and moving here was even more awesome. Kind of like superheroes, just well from the shadows. Guess that was fine. Is it? He mumbles, a bit confused, looking around, finding nothing that matched it, even when GPS was telling him where to go. Sighing heavily, drops his shoulders, scratches his dark messy green hair. This is going to be wonderful. The last plate was set and ready. Finally done. Now for the next part, waking them up. Turning, walk to the shared room. Open the door, lightly peer inside. There they were, sleeping soundly. Waking them started to feel wrong, but it needed to be done. Opening the door further, walk in softly, clearing the throat. Take a breath, and wake them cheerfully. Smile and all. Ni-chan. You call, crossing fingers you were using the right suffix. Ni-chan. Come and awake for the morning sun. It is time to rise and shine. School shall be starting soon, and we must be sure to eat a hearty meal and tend to the regular mornings as due. April grunts under her sheets, tossing a bit. Tries to bury herself further under her pillow, in hopes to end your morning words. Her sister's good morning words. But it didn't stop. Duties and obligations, we must make way for a brand new day. For we start school. A brand new school. Guess jet lag was still affecting her. Smiling to yourself, go over and shake her just a bit, hoping it would help. She moans for you to stop, pushing your hands away slightly. You get ready to do it again when the doorbell rang. Thank goodness, April sighs, getting comfortable again, hearing sister's feet walking away. I have your clothes ready for you, sister. You shout down the hall. Peaky April moans in her pillow. No point of sleeping now, up now. Her hair unruly and wildly everywhere over her. Mirror a shaggy dog. That was easy to fix really, yawning. Took a minute for her mind to process she was awake and another minute hearing a voice. Not her sister's but an extra one, who was engaging in conversation with May. Thought April had a feeling that May was the one who was doing most of the talking. Hearing her offer food to this individual, trying to focus to shake her sleepiness and familiarize the voice, rises from her bed. Plant her feet on the floor, finally stood, extending a hand without looking as she walked towards the bathroom, drifts a brush over. Grasping it, begins brushing her hair, smoothing it out, leaves it to continue brushing it without her aid. Holds her hand out again, drifts her clothes for the day over. They float right into the bathroom from her room. Nothing hard, easy really, having done this many times back home. Home, she pauses. By this time their father would be sleeping or heading to bed. After of course he came in to check on her in May. Instead of finding them, he'd find empty rooms. Even though she wasn't there, she knew felt his heartbreak but also pride. Gave her a sense of ease. Picking up her toothbrush and toothpaste, squeezes a bit and brushes up and down, left and right, all around. Last was the tongue, then spit. Gargle for a bit, spit again. Using the mirror to check for anything else, see nothing, switch from pajamas to the day's outfit. Dark blue Caprice pants, yellow tank top with white strips, brown denim jacket, and white tennis shoes with yellow strips across the front. She decided against wearing the headband. That was okay. She did however clip her hair up, brushed her bangs to left, stepping back giving herself a good look. Smile approving, leaves to the kitchen, dining room. On her way there, she could hear May's sweet and bubbly continuous talking, that just rose each second with excitement. Her mouth was going off and off to whoever the guest was about exploring the country while also questioning about the suffixes to be used properly. But the most when April entered the scene. May had at least 2 guidebooks open in her list of things she wanted to do, as well a history book. Where she got it from, April wasn't sure. But May was going on and on about the guidebook, inquiring their guest who sat there lost for words being buried under May's words. It was clear by their nervous beads of sweat trickling down from their forehead, they weren't sure what say, looking lost themselves, while May smiled thrilled, squealing too about the aspect of such treasury. And I believe I would like to see a tea ceremony. I would much like to enjoy going on the train that is considered anti-gravity. Oh, and would must enjoy the outskirts of the countryside to experience a moment of. You pause for a moment to think. What was it? I am not sure, but I would much like to try. With your finger point to it in the book. Then flip to another page to show them more. Though it was more like bombarding them, they sat so calm and patient, even as you evaded their space unintentional. Shaking her head with a sigh, April clears her throat. May, enough. Both sets of eyes turn to her, one of golden yellow, the other green, belonging to their guest, a young plain 14-year-old boy, with green messy hair and freckles. He had big eyes, with a kind and friendly face, dressed in a full-length gray jacket, green full-length pants and a red necktie, though it was covered with uneasiness, even if he smiled. Sister, clearing your throat. Nason, good morning. This is Izuku Midoriya. You introduce him kindly, smiling. He is a current student at UA, where we shall be attending. Is that not wonderful? Mr. Aizawa-sensei has given someone. The way you said made Izuku look at you oddly. You kept going. He is to show us around and take us to school. He came while you awoke, so I let him in. And look, Izuku suddenly felt himself lifted up from his seat. He nearly freaked out as you held up like a toddler under his arms. April mental slaps herself. Apologize, though in a way that nearly startled the young man. Sorry, he heard not voice nor saw April's lips move, but heard it in his head. Raise a brow. There was more from her non-verbally. My sister, she means well, and well. April lightly chucks. Hi Izuku, or would you prefer I call you Miria-san? He wasn't sure really, still trying to think carefully on his thoughts, knowing she was in his mind. April seemed to sense it and smirks lightly. With a wink, cuts the link, turns to using her voice, telling her sister to put him down. You as you were told, dust him off too. There you are, well, now. Give him a smile, which he returned nervously. Something you picked up, noticing his beads of sweat. Put a hand on his forehead, not realizing it increased. Are you not well? Before he could answer, you were suddenly lifted unaided and moved away from him. Over to April, who he realized was the one responsible. Her hand out and mildly focused, he noticed her hands had a light blue glow to them. Her quirk was activated. To see this ... he was rather impressed. So effortlessly she moved her sister away all the way to their room. He heard the door shut and at the same time levitated her breakfast over. April stares at the wonderful breakfast her sister made. Of course she'd make something like this, smiling pancakes with scrambled eggs as hair. To make it funny, adding and using bacon as the smile and whipped cream as the eyes with a strawberry for the nose. Childish in a way, but that was her. Either way it was food. Grabbing the plate, releasing it from her hold, sits down to eat. All the while Izuku's eyes followed while his mind gawked over her quirk. Millions of questions flooded his mind. He didn't realize they came out until April pointed it out. "Are you talking about me?" Izuku froze with embarrassment. His tongue swelled 3 times its size. Well, began twiddling with his thumbs. Sheepishly, avoided eye contact with her, which was fine by April. Tempted to read his mind, clearly saw his thoughts on his face and smiles. "Hey, do you want to eat? It seems May made you an extra cup of tea." So, calming down by her friendly words, Izuku nods, taking up her offer. April pulls out a chair for him. He takes his seat and she levitates him a plate over, setting it before him, along with his tea that was now cold, along with a fork with option of chopsticks. He chooses the chopsticks. "Wow, your sister went through a lot," he said, amazed at the breakfast face staring back. "Not sure if I want to eat it." April did, not having any qualms. Nearly halfway done. "Yeah," she smiles to herself. "My sister does." Picks up her tea and drinks it, with a refreshing gulp. Sets it down. "So Izuku or Miria-san, you never did really answer my question from before. By the way, sorry about freaking you out being in your mind. It was the only way to talk with you over my sister." "Oh, that's fine." He scratches his cheek a bit. Well, if it's your quirk then that's okay. It just feels a bit weird." Realizing his words, quickly apologizes. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean like that." Overrating much, was the face April made. "That's fine. Anyway," she stands up with her plate. "You better eat something. May is going to be ready to go." Walks over to the sink. Izuku looks back his plate. That smiled back, so he smiled too. Picks up his chopsticks. "Guess I better. I am ready." You shout coming out. Izuku nearly choked and spit when you. His eyes widen with confusion at what he saw you in. That you happily if not proudly and innocently wore. That was something only worn for festivals or occasions. Not an everyday thing, but it was clear it didn't dawn on you. The way you stood with such a smile, he couldn't tell you no. It just told him you were serious about life here in Japan. To, as you said, it blend with the common natives. A hand lands on his shoulders. It was April. "Just let it be." "Ready?" she asked. He nods and stands, about to take his plate, but April does it, sending it to the sink without touching it. "Sorry, I forgot." "Yeah, let's go." Getting and grabbing bags, along with slipping on the shoes in your case sandal getas. Follow them out the door in your light green kimono. Mikey's face pressed eagerly on the dark-tinted windows of the car. He and his family sat in on its way to UA. Hi, their new school. New high school. So awesome. His baby blue sparkled and hype transformed to his body, bouncing up and down on the dark leather seats, flatting the fluff, while also annoying his second eldest brother, Raph, who was already in a foul mood, having to wear this stupid uniform that was required for all students to wear that attended UA. How they managed to make it wearable for him and his brothers was beyond him. Tugging at the collar of his white shirt, so tempted to rip it off. Instead rip anew to Mikey. "Can you stop?" Laughing at the annoyance of his brother, Mikey kept it up. Stuck his tongue out as a response, further kicking Raph's anger into high. He flare. Literally. Donnie, sitting next to him, jumped to the other side of the seats where his father and eldest brother sat. "Geez, Raph." Donnie snaps at his inflamed brother. Began to roll the window down. "You're gonna burn us." "Cool." His words fell on deaf ears, as always. With Mikey's constantly irritating him, Raph's temper didn't cool. Leo, who was reading diligently over the information guidebook provided by the school about its rules and regulations, to be ready, as well memorizing the campus. The vast campus it would see, tried his best to block out his bothersome brothers. But it hard, with Raph heating up the car, and Mikey's cackling laughter. He barely could turn the page to the dress code before he too snapped. "Guys." His voice rises over the others. Fuming. "I'm trying to read here. Can you just stop?" Their eyes turn to him. Raph's glowing heated emerald eyes immediately lock with Leo's sapphire ones. Hard. Transferring his anger on him, Leo remained unfazed by his brother's defiant stare. It was the same, even back in New York. Whenever Raph got like this, he hated being ordered around. especially when he got flared. Rising from his seat, having sizzled off the seat belt, towers over his eldest brother. With clenched fists, Mikey and Donnie both exchange wide-eyed glances. They felt the tension between the two, as it always was. And with Raph's knowledge of his quirk now, with all of their awareness of their quirks, things were different. His though seemed to like quite a lot when angered. His temper, they noticed, seemed shorter, ever since that Shota Aizawa guy came to them and exploited their quirks. Neither realized they had, actually. Raph's been a little different. Why, what are you gonna do? Raph demands darkly. His flare blazed more, heating the care more. Donnie and Mikey looked to their father, who sat calmly with his eyes closed as everything heated around them. Stepping to his brother with a deep smirk, itching for Leo to react. Leo eyes wrinkle in refusal as the pages of his book sizzled and singed away. From the proximity of his brother, "Dude," Mikey whispers to Donnie, holding him, "can't you do something?" That was a stupid thing to ask. Donnie looks at his younger brother. No, I can't. You know that. Besides, I think it's the smartest choice to just sit here and pray," he meekly says to the side. Gulping hard, it extinguishes. "But that's gonna take forever," Mikey whines, cringing at rising expulsion of heat Raph kept emitting. Began to feel his skin start to cook. "I don't want to be charred turtle." Raising a hand over Leo, Raph drives it down, yelling, "Yeah, what are you gonna do?" "Enough," their father commands, and in one fluid motion stops his son, hitting a pressure point, ending his quirk and disabling him. Raph falls to the floor of the car stunned, pinching his brow. Splinter sighs at his hot-headed son. "Raphael, this is not the behavior you must present. None of you." He includes the others, sternly staring at each one, warning them each. "Do you understand?" His voice whips them into obedience instantly. "Yes," they shout in fear. "Good." Smiling pleased, Splinter sits back down, smooths out his dark suit, fixing his cuffs over his wrist. How long had been since he wore something like this? For the last 15 years he wore nothing but a brown-maroon robe. Now, that was no longer the case. He was finally back, wearing something a man would wear. It was fitted and trimmed to his stature, custom made, just like the uniforms for his sons, provided by the UA. Everything was provided and done by the school, even the rebuilt of his family's home, though with some more current modifications. An indoor lap pool, his sons truly loved. It built larger than before, given vast acres of land. Though the painful scars of memory hurt, it did not hold such an effect. The school was honorable and respecting. They kindly built a grave site for his love, Ten Xian. It was as lovely as she was. It was the first place he taken to by the principal of UA, Nezu, whose appearance seemed like a combination of other animals. Maybe a dog, mouse, or a bear, though seemed to resemble a humanoid mink, with a bear-like face and dog-like paws. Blacks with a large scar across his right one. Dressed in an elegant suit and orange sneakers. A polite fellow he was, and took a fancy the moment he a Splinter meet, being the one to provide the tour and welcome them, along with Shota, his boy's teacher it would seem, along with another, a man who went by the name All Might, a large man with equally muscular and well-defined physique. Reminded Splinter of one of the heroes in Mikey's comic books. Short blonde hair with two distinct bangs that stood up over his head, that seemed to cast a dark shadow over his deep blue eyes, with a giant smile spread across his face, and a rather boisterous laugh. Dressed in his skin-tight blue hero bodysuit, decorated with a red symbol designed with a white diamond at its center, with white lines connected to it that traced from his chest to his back shoulders, trimmed with aforementioned red symbol, that appeared to have wings on the side that ran from atop his torso before ending at his lower thighs, a golden belt around his waist, and gold boots to match, informing his sons they too will have their costume. Of course Mikey nearly passed out knowing this. All Might, as Splinter found out, was to be a teacher at UA, so he would be working with the man. Mikey nearly squealed at the prospect knowing this. The two Nezu and All Might were kind to greet them and return home. It was good to be back. Japan hadn't changed. His sons would be going to school for the first time. Looking at them, he knew each of them were nervous in their own way, trying to find ways to conceal it. It was understandable. This would be their first interacting with others for the first time. Besides the few they did back home, they were receiving an education. Not the most normal one, but one nonetheless. It was a good thing. They had the girls to help them become acclimated to the life of an actual teenage. The thought made Splinter smile. To himself, his sons, his eyes fall to each one. Raph was slowly regaining his movement back, though was burnt out from the overuse of his quirk. His gifted sons, his smile slowly fell. Yes, his gifted sons. Hey, we're here, Mikey informs the others, rolling the window, sticking his out with a smile that could easily match All Might's. Throws nearly half his body out, shouting, "Whoa, yeah," laughing. Students entering the grounds of UA stopped and turn in the direction of the noise, see its owner, stare in disbelief at the teenage turtle boy halfway out the window of the dark car, laughing. Inside, Donnie and Leo slide down. Splinter covers his face, shaking his head. Leave it to Mikey to make a scene. And a scene he did. It took the attention away from the pink-haired girl dressed in a kimono, walking with Izuku and the ginger-haired girl. The commotion was heard all the way to the front hall of the school. Izuku stops and turns to the front gates just before going in. "What was that?" he asked, looking to April, then to you. Neither sister seemed to know. Well, whatever it was or whoever it was clearly drew attention. Up in the building, Shota looked down, eyes on the newest arrivals and students of UA, eyeing each one, from the O'Neill sisters with Izuku, to the Hamato family being greeted by Momo, who was assigned with welcoming them. "That's quite a look you have on, Shota." Knowing that voice, Shota didn't need to look at them. They come and stand by his side. Look down at the new students. The Hamatos, thanks to the youngest, were surrounded by a crowd of students. The two sisters no doubt inside now, being led to class by Izuku. So, they direct to Shota. "What do you think?" Shota's lips remained pressed together. He had his thoughts, he had his information about them. Their quirks, all of them. They were skilled, taught well. But this was different playing field. One that was far beyond what their little ... club was like back in New York. The youngest better wipe that stupid smile off his face, cause he was in for a whole ... new world. All of them were. With a smile curled on his lips hidden by his hair, Shota headed to his class. Your heart couldn't stop pounding with exhilaration with each step taken down the hallway of UA, following Izuku and April before you, while you trailed a bit behind them, occasionally stopping to gaze out the window at something interesting about the enormous campus, or you'd stop just to bow and say konnichiwa to nearly every student. Of course, this prompted April or Izuku to call you to keep up, which you did, trailing after them, clenching the light purple container in your arms to your chest. The sound of your goji clunked down the halls, earning a few stares and looks from others, wondering why someone was dressed in a kimono instead of uniform. "This facility is rather large, Izuku-chan," you exclaimed with a smile, stopping again to look out the window. "It is most vast." He stops and turns back to you. The smile on your face was brimming. It was adorable in an adoring way. "Yeah, I felt that way too," he agrees, walking over. "UA is really great. I know you're gonna love it here. He looks out the window. "So much we're going to learn here to be great heroes. This is only my second week and I can tell you one thing." April comes over to hear his words. He looks to her too, then back to you. "You're both going to do great. Will we have experience?" April proudly says modestly. "I don't think being a ninja is any different than being a hero." She looks to her sister, you smile, nodding. Not sure really what you two were talking about, but from what Izuku heard it sounded like there seemed to be some sort of experience or something. Cause the confident gleam in both sisters' eyes showed. Breaking with you, April turns to him. "Come on, let's get to class." He agrees and continues leading the sisters to class. On the way, answering questions both of them had, especially from the youngest. Not the only one leading and introducing new students to UA. Momoye Yarazu too was given, or in her eyes honored with the task, to welcome such a family, a rather prestigious family at that. She had arrived to school rather early to make preparations for their arrival, even going as far as standing and waiting 10 minutes before their arrival in front of the school. Once they arrived, welcomed there formally, nearly swept up upon meeting them, especially the last living member, Hamato Yoshi, or as he preferred, Splinter, a tall man, slim yet sturdy mutant brown rat with white and black markings, dressed nearly similar as the principal, just with sleeves and dark purple, with stern yet kind and warm reddish-brown eyes that showed years of both wisdom and experience. Splinter was the name he chose, and whatever his name, she would respectful speak it. To bask in such esteem was enough to swept her breath away. She nearly lost it. And when he too returned kind's words back to her, she just no words could describe such a sentimental feeling that still filled her as she lead his sons, clearly adopted, his 4 turtle sons, each of them seeming wearing a different color mask over their eyes to help distinguish them apart from one another, though not full needed, as they each green skin of a different shade. From her observation and with the introduction, she was able to see who was who. Leo, or Leonardo Hamato the eldest, wore blue. Raphael, the second eldest and seemingly the one with the most attitude and grumpy of the 4, wore red. Befitting, really. Next, Donnie, or Donatello, the tallest and thinnest of his brothers, rather nerdy looking, wore purple. Finally, the last of the brothers and clearly the youngest and immature, as he displayed with half his body out the car window. Mikey or Michelangelo wore orange. There was much to say about that one being the fact he wore his uniform less kept together. His undershirt untucked and jacket was wrinkled, necktie loosely hung. Not to mention he had the least focus swaying to the tunes or beats he was spitting out from the earphones plugged in his ears. It amazed her how he still managed to keep up with her and the others. Honestly, it was quite tiresome. Leo had told her it was best to just let him be. These four, her eyes glanced back at the Unjewel sons, were part of such a family. The Hamado. Splinter must have seen something in each of them to adopt them into his lineage. Either way, they held the man's name, and like herself and few others because of such a last name became admitted into UA with recommendations. So there was something about them right. There was something else she noticed. The way their eyes widen, eyeing nearly everything and everyone in pure amazement. There was this wondering look in their eyes, even Raph's, who tried his hardest to keep his eyes solidly to the floor. It's as if they've never been or seen a school before, she thoughtfully deduced. I promise, she said. They looked to her, noticing a small smile. You four will enjoy your time here. UA has a lot to offer. You'll fit in just fine. Leo was shocked at her words that reassured their nerves and worries. Grateful, he smiles back, looking to his brothers. Thanks, we hope so. Glad to clear that up, they continue their way. Arrive soon to their new classroom. Leo and his brothers stop instantly and look up. Their eyes swirled with mixture of emotions. Momo wasn't sure which one of the many was more dominate than the other. One thing she did know was pushing past majority of their anxiety and masked distress, there was bright hype of excitement that shone in each brother's eyes, that spread the widest on Mikey. Whoa, he hollers, thrusting his arms up, howling, turning heads not just in class but also those in the hall. Ripping out his earphone, wastes no time to make a grand entrance, rushing and sliding in on his knees. Hang loose gestures on each hand, tongue sticking out and everything. Like an actual American rock star. Heads and eyes instantly turned towards the mutant that loudly came in, taking all attention with his air-jamming guitar and bright wide smile. Not to mention a wink he added to the first pair of eyes that looked his way. A few students stand from their desk, while others just look on with a quizzed brow, clearly taking no mind of care to the eyes on him. Mikey stands, running a smooth hand over the top of his hairless head as if he had locks to run his fingers through. His smile still on. Momo and his brothers still at the doors, shock written all over their faces. Well, mainly his brothers. Momo was just amazed. That quickly fell from their faces when Mikey opened his mouth and threw out his mind. Hey, my name's Mikey Hamado. I love pizza, hot dogs, and pretty much anything. Oh, totally love playing video games, he lists, pointing to himself, then to the class, laughing. What up, y'all? Me and my bros, he includes them, turning to them. Eyes follow, finding them. Donnie instantly sunk with a weak smile and wave, reminding himself to kill Mikey later. Came all the way from New York. Concrete jungle. He jumps and flips back, landing perfectly on the teacher's desk. Gasp came from a few others. Mikey just laughed, continuing, gripping the edge, rocking back and forth, sticking out his tongue. Doing one more flip, again landing perfectly. We was once ninjas. My bros and friends kicked a great deal of butt and now we's gonna be heroes. It's gonna be totally awesome, he said nonchalantly. Breath. He sits now, eyes wide and welcoming. He'll look pretty chill. His eyes quickly slide to the person he winked at for a moment. We should all totally hang out. My crib's got this really awesome lap pool. Y'all should come over for a swim. Though, my bro Raph has a rash he's a bit embarrassed about. Mikey, Raph roars, glaring sharply, flaring his quirk charges in to tackle his brother. And again, without looking, Mikey effortlessly flips over him, landing just fine, causing Raph to run straight into a wall. Pointing laughter rang out from Mikey. Why? Leo mumbles in his hand. Donnie groaned, praying this was all a dream. Momo just took in the whole scene, flaring more with each laugh that left Miki's mouth. Raph pulls himself from the wall, nothing but blinding rage in his eyes, showed emitting a small scarlet red blaze from the center of his chest, rushed through his veins, outlined around him in a solid line, sizzled and began charring the ground beneath his feet, leaving an imprint with each step he took, leaving a trail behind when lunged at Mikey. It was so fast, Mikey just barely was able to dodge. Yelping, he manages to just barely jump over Raph. Still laughing, a mistake on his part. Raph's hand shots up, grabbing him by the ankle and yanks his laughing brother back. That instantly stopped from the fear. Screams. Raph, guys. Leo and Donnie rush in with Momo, who gets ready to create something to assist. Seeing the severity of the situation, with a mighty downward swing, Raph would make his brother pay. Ignoring Mikey's frightful screams and the others, continued with revenge, when something thin and quick wrapped itself around the angry mutant. binding him like a mummy and canceling his quirk. Then not matter how hard he tried to break out, he couldn't. From this, looking down, finds cloth wrapped around his entire body but his head. Like a snake, grunting and struggling again to get free, barks irritated. Who the smart guy who did this? He snarls, demanding, turning an accusing look to the class, then to brothers, who had stopped instantly. No one said anything, only fuming Raph's already enragement. Opens his mouth this time to roar the question. God, you're loud. Woke me up. A familiar stern and apathetic voice filled irritation spoke, silencing the class. Walks in and over to Raph, gripping the cloth that restrained him. Was enough to even strike fear in the mutant. Evidence with the perspiration that began to show the closer they stepped. No quirks in class, Shota said. Leans in close. Understand. Whispers in his ears. Raph nods. Good. Shota snatches the cloth off, unraveling him. Eyes return back to normal Hayes' self. Turns to the class for a moment, shifts to Leo and his brothers. You should be in your seats. Class is about to start. Or better, is going to start. Helping Mikey up, Leo nods. Yeah, we were swallows trying to find the right words under the Shota's stern glare. Instead just gets his brother, who was now swirling, disoriented from overuse. Then he thought he was going to throw up or something. Geez, Mikey ... you to Raph. Donnie hisses at them both. Following Momo to their seats, she instructs them each to. Raph plops down in his seat, arms crossed and eyes glared to the floor. Momo takes her seat right behind Donnie and next to her classmate Shouta, who eyes watched each brother, from Leo to the last. Hamato, he thought. In their seats, Shota clears his throat, opens. All right, Todd. Instantly gets interrupted by the arrival of another who came jovially in, with a smile to match. Good morning and greetings. You step in, greeting everyone happily. You didn't pay attention to your feet crossing or dragging kimono. Entangle, and Konish trip and fall hard and loud flat on your face, before everyone, who gasp and most stand at the sight before them. Izuku and April at the door, staring wide-eyed like the rest, sighing with a dragged eye roll from Shota. Americans, he mutters, the eyes of the students cast on the tall mutant rat that stood behind Nezu, who introduced them to this new teacher. So far what they learned was his name, Hamato Yoshi, to a few that was quite a surprise, who went by the name Splinter mainly. This man rat mutant was to be the newest instructor here at UA, whom Nezu held with enthusiasm. Highly. The way he spoke about their new instructor was it teacher, sensei, as if they have been or were old acquaintances or familiarity. Half the time it sounded like Nezu salesperson. The way he spoke. The whole time Splinter stood there solemnly with his eyes closed, either in deep focus or just closed. The students weren't sure. The calm seriousness on his face was so smooth it seemed unnatural. This Splinter wasn't a hero none of them knew about or heard of. It was like he just came out of thin air, or something, and what he was to be teaching was what many believed to be a joke or something. Some even snickered at the aspect about it, mocking it, a grave mistake. Their words were quickly picked up by Splinter, his eyes sharply and quickly opened like daggers at the disrespectful one. Felt it graze his cheek, froze them with fear. The whole class gasped, expelling a breath as if pained. Their eyes nervously and frightfully turned back to their new teacher, whose eyes sternly moved to each and every one of them. Walking eyes, even if for a brief moment, commanding obedience and would not tolerate rudeness of any kind. Discipline was what firmly sat in Splinter's reddish-brown eyes, that hid the sound of his own heartbeat in clammy palms claws. So many his eyes continued to gloss over the students again, commanding their attention. Stepping forward, they instantly gave it to him. He warmly smiles inside, jittering with a prickly feeling. I cannot believe it. So many different faces, physical characteristic on and with each student. Nezu, noticing his internal reaction, smiles to himself, pleased. Well, it seems you have everything covered. I suppose I will take my leave. He bows out and leaves, stopping just before the last foot left, takes a deep breath. Do join me once you are done with your day. I would much like to hear it. Also, his smile curled just a bit, sending a few shivers down the spines of students. Learn all you can from my adoring colleague. He is a master in many forms of affliction, though he is rather modest on using such techniques. The shadows are known for being his best friend. His words were either a warning or dark tease, whichever. Splinter, his new student's fear spike. Wonderful. Oh, one more thing, Nezu added, this time direct to Splinter. There is no need to worry about your sons. I know they are enjoying themselves. They will be safe. I will make sure to keep my nephews safe, as well the other two. So please, brother, don't worry. No one knows of your inclusion here. Slides a smile back to the rat. Waves. See you soon. Walks out with the door shutting after him. Though his words, somewhat comforting, did not really ease Splinter's own worried nerves. All he could do was really hope his son's and two students' first day was well. Hopefully, Izuku mutters lowly to himself, dropping his eyes to the purple plastic container that sat on his desk, belonging to May, who dropped it when she took an embarrassing face plant to the floor, fell from her hold, sliding nearly across the room. He picked it up when she told to go to see Recovery Girl by Aizawa. Even though she protested, he threatened her to go, which she didn't seem to get at first, until he made it very clear. There was nothing but a smile on her face, despite the large red floor print across her face and rather confusion for a moment, believing himself or April were someone else. So she went to Recovery Girl to recovery, after she regained her senses straight. He just hoped she first found her way as she was new and no one went with her, second that she was okay. Despite her sunny disposition, gripping the container, he could smell just a bit of the baked scent from it. It was something May had brought with her to present to the class. He was given one on the way here. He was more surprised she made it so fast this morning. It was good. A gift of welcome, she called it. Right now, it was just something that sat in a container. She's okay, he laments, lifting his eyes across the room to April, where April sat mid-row by the door. She seemed okay, not at all noticeably worried. Nor did the four turtle brothers, really, especially Mikey, who was just spaced out making ninja paper stars, until he heard something that caught everyone's attention in class. There, Recovery Girl's lips kiss you lightly on the cheek. A giddy tingle spread through your body, causing you to giggle. Just a bit, making the short elderly woman smile kindly. Now then, she goes to her desk and takes out a cold compression. Squeezing it, comes back over to her patient sitting on one of the medical beds, no longer with red or slightly bruised face. Rest the pack lightly on your face. Hold this here. It should help just a bit. Nodding, do as she says. She had stepped out the room for a moment. The cooling feeling was nice, with a slight shiver. Just a slight one. Half-heartedly, you weren't expecting to take such a fall. Really? Oh well. Who would have thought the kimono was so long and dragged? Or was it your footing was off when you tried to rush in? Whichever, you were now in the nurse's office, getting tended to. Here we are. Recovery Girl comes back and holding some folded clothes, presents them to you. I believe this would be much better than the kimono, dear. Taking the compression off, look at the folded clothing. Your eyes instantly light up. Gray length jacket, white undershirt, red necktie, green plaited skirt, and brown shoes. All similar to what the students here wore. A uniform. Picking it up, admire it, squealing inside. The woman smiles at your reaction. Jumping off the bed, turn to her, she points to the restroom in the corner, thanking her. Go and change. The last thing you did was slide on the jacket that fit well. Untucking your hair out from the collar, allow it to fall all the way down. Look yourself over, making sure nothing was out of place. Patting down your skirt softly. Straighten out your tie and make sure your shoes fit well. Ready. Well, almost something seemed to be missing. Observing your reflection, eyes looking yourself over slowly, very slowly. Stop and see what it was. Glancing around area, search for something, looking, scoping there. Take it and add it to your look. There, now you are official done. Gather the kimono and anything else. Step out, soft smile and all. I am ready. Announce yourself. The second someone talking to the nurse leaves. Hearing you, Recovery Girl turns to you. She said sweetly. You look much better, dear. Look at you. Oh. She noticed what you included. It was small but fit well. Smiles. You look well. Now then, she turns around to her desk and writes something down on a slip of paper. Tears it off and gives it to you. Here is your pass to return back to class. That should do it. Taking it, read it. It was just like any normal slip from any school. Yet, it felt different. Thank you. You bow to her politely. She noticed your trembling glee. Why? She wasn't sure. But it was adoring nonetheless. Coming up, couldn't help but twirl ever so slightly. When you remember something. Oh, is there by any chance that I may an extra set of clothing for my sister, so that she may also have one? Nodding, Recovery Girl gets down from her seat and fetches another uniform for you. Here, dear. Taking them, thank her once again and leave. She watches you till you turn the corner. One of that was the name of your class. Izuku told you and what you saw when he took you in April to it. Yet, none of the rooms or doors had it on it. In fact, you weren't sure where you were really slowing your running feet to a walk to a stop. Eyes look around for any sort of indication you were going the right way, or something, but you found nothing. Were you even on the right floor? The halls looked the same, high and wide. Windows too. Just ... none of the doors had one on it. You managed to get to the nurse's off fine, cause you had help. Now, not really, but you had hope you would find it eventually. Fingers crossed. Was exactly what Mikey had when he threw his name out like every one other student in class in the nomination of class representative. To his brother's dismay, April took no part in it. Alright, Mikey gets swept up like the others. Writes his name. Donnie rolls his eyes. The probability of Mikey being chose the same as in boron having an extra neutron. Snickers to himself at his own nerdy joke, snorting a bit. Looking around, no one joined him. Sighing, Leo mutters to himself, eyes to his desk. Should he write his name on it? Like most teenagers did. That was what someone in school did, right? Or should he? Leonardo, Momo's voice breaks his thoughts. He looks up to her, finding her holding out a piece of paper for him. Everyone's casting their votes on who should be representative. As you can see, she turns back to the board with nearly everyone's name on it. Everyone pretty much has included themselves. We're all going to vote now, and that includes you as well. Here, all you need to do is just vote who it is you'd like to have in. He listens to her guiding and helpful words. Understanding, nods and takes the paper. She noticed the slight tremble of his hand when he took it. The way he stared at it, confused for a moment again. His mind rushing, trying to decide what to do. Raising a hand rested on his shoulder. He stiffens instantly from her touch. Relax, she quietly tells him. It's all right. Nodding slowly, he manages a smile. Picks up his pen, stops it just a centimeter from the paper. Who should I pick? Discernment wrinkled on her brows. I don't really, well, me and guys don't really know anyone here. Decides Momo. But she's just helping us out. And then there's Mikey, he sighs. Not Mikey. Then who? His sapphire eyes move around to each student, or was it classmate? They all look dissent. Just his eyes stop on someone. And that someone was the name he chose. Was this the right way you chose? Instead of making a left, took a right. Find yourself at a different room. Sighing, turn back around to take that left. This campus was greatly vast indeed. Bored of walking, took to flying instead, though just a bit off the ground, not too much. Coming around the corner, find another hall and take it. How long have you been out of class now? Was anyone even worried? What would your teacher think? Did he think you had been playing? Looking down at your pass, read the time that was put there. Take out your phone, see it was long past the time. Nearly panic. This is not good. You huff. I should have found my way back by now. What shall I inform? Drift down hall with your attention still on the pass. Didn't notice. Pay attention to the person before you until you bumped right into them. Hey, they growl, whipping around. Instantly you land. Forgive me, but your attention's still on the pass. I am currently lost, and if you could help me in finding my class, that would be great. They said nothing except stare. Believing they did not hear you, repeat it again. They swallow instead of answer, fluster a bit when you sighed. Did they snap out of it? Sure, they shout. Glad to hear. Smile, raising your eyes to meet theirs when the lunch bell suddenly rings. Doors and students come piling and flooding out, sweeping you away in the current. Much to the latter's shock, their hand thrust out to yours, in hopes of grabbing it, or at least briskly. Wait, you hear them and the noise of the other students who pushed you with them. You manage to just barely glance back to catch a glimpse of long gray hair. I have arrived. You announce yourself, entering class 1A, to find it completely empty. There was not a single person in their seat or anything. The only thing that showed their presence, the names on the board, with tally marks of some kind. Reading it, seeing what it was for. Elections for class representative and vice representative. Right away your eyes find Mikey's. Making you laugh, of course he would do it. Though to your surprise Leo's was not on. You did see Izuku's, who won a surprise. Made you smile. And seem another came in second, Momo. Unsure who it was, congratulate them either way. How much of class did you miss? Better question, how long were you lost in the halls? To come back to an empty class. It was a good thing that river of students swept you here. Otherwise who knows where you'd end up at. A blessing in disguise. Walking in, look around for a moment, wondering where your desk was, hoping it was by April or one of the guys. That would be good. Walking among the desks, still holding the kimono and April's uniform. If you couldn't find yours, then you could at least find hers. No, not that one. Nope. Going up and down each row, finally stop before one. And smile. This was April's, no doubt about it. How did you know? You just did? The two of you were sisters after all. Though leaving it here wouldn't do any good since she wasn't here. Nor would leaving your kimono either. With not other choice, keep it with you and leave. Stop in the middle of the hall and look left then right. Where was April? Better yet, where was all of class 1A now? If in range, April would be able to pick you up and you her. But that wasn't the case. Sighing, again you'd have to search this maze of a school. No point of sulking about it, nothing would get done. The plus side of this was that you'd at least be able to get a bit more familiar with it. With that thought in mind, begin your search with a growling stomach. A growling stomach that sang high praises the moment Mikey and his brothers were brought to the school's cafeteria, lunch rush. A large food court with various venues for all to choose and buy food from. What was even better, the prices were low and affordable. There were long tables, each with 10 chairs to sit on. There were Chinese-themed decorations and the large double doors they stood before. Momo saw their jaws just drop the moment they entered. Their eyes nearly popped out too. She could barely keep herself from acting surprised and smiling to herself. These boys quite interesting. These Americans, wow. Of course she didn't mean it in any sort rude way. She was just amazed by their reaction to everything. Despite knowing this was clearly their first time in an actual school, and it seemed to be their first time mingling with others, her own questions would have to wait. Right now she was their aid to this new environment. Dude, Mikey exclaims laughing. There's so much food to choose from. It's like overwhelmed he was lost for words. That the hold of smell of the food held him. He could barely hold in the dripping saliva coming out. Donnie though takes a different approach, analyzing the area. This honestly seems impossible to have a cafeteria this enormous. I mean, I've never actually been in one before. But, from what I know and have seen, this just while he tries to wrap his mind around it all, finding nothing. Except the smell of something enticing. Is that distracting his thoughts? There is quite a lot, Leo admits, surveying all around. Momo noticed his eyes weren't really on the food. Just like Raph's, they were on students who just went about their day. Though of course some of them did cast staring eyes towards them. Eyes that earned Raph's tight frown and clenching teeth. His fists began to ball up and his Quirk began to thinking quickly. Momo comes in front of his view. Hands up in calm voice. Why don't we go and get something to eat? I'm sure you must all be hungry. Mikey jumped to the idea. Yeah, he shouts, earning a quarter of heads to turn in their direction. Attention that wasn't needed. Covering their faces, Momo and Leo sigh, grumbling at him. More so when Mikey took out his music player and began playing it, rapping to it, rushing over to get something to eat, rooting loudly for all to hear. Donnie running after him to hush, only made it worse. Raph just grew more irritated. He snapped. What are you looking at? Huh? Looking a few students with heated eyes. They quickly turn away and stuff their faces. Momo and Leo remain standing, faces in the palm of their hand. Sorry about my brothers. He mutters to her. Taking a breath, Momo raises her head and smiles cordial. That's all right. Your brothers are. Aresh tries to find the right words, but they wouldn't come. Not good. Clears her throat. Why don't we join them? Raphael, she calls to the irate brother, who nearly flared up his Quirk. If she hadn't called to him. Raphael, she says his name again, with Leo included. Both of them hold their breaths, watching and waiting. Taking a deep breath, Raph slowly begins calming down. Withdrawing his Quirk back, a sigh of relief slipped from Momo. Nearly broke a sweat from it. Wipes it away, puts on her smile and approaches Raph, keeping her voice and words calm. Shall we go? She asked, meeting his slight hostile and apologetic emerald eyes. That nod, yes. Glad she leads the last two over to other two. Staying close to Raph, hand on his shoulder, just in case. Those Americans are interesting. A student says, watching them. The orange one is pretty loud, annoying a bit. I wonder what their quirks are. Did you see how the red one was? He's got a temper, haha. They chuckle. It could honestly match you know who. Their smile drops from the dark snarling growl behind them. Ashen. They turn around slowly, finding the white scowling eyes of Bakugo staring at them. Swallow the nervous lump in their throat that remained lodged. They began to choke under his stare and flaring nostrils, puffing out hot smoke like a bull, holding up shaking hands with a smile to match. Try to calm him down. Oh, of course I meant crap. They couldn't think of anything. But Bakugo did and made it known. Those Americans ain't nothing. They're nothing but fancy excuses of bodies. Tokens. They're plain, boring and nothing but astards. You hear me? And that one, he points to Raph across the other side of the room, is nothing compared to me. I'll wipe the floor with each and every one of them. He blares. Heads instantly whip to where Americans were, especially the red one. A hush fell, wondering if he heard. It seemed not. There was no reaction. Good, able to breathe, everything went back to normal. Back to eating and enjoyment. That the students didn't notice the crackling lighting arching back and forth between the eyes of Bakugo and Raph, who smirks confidently at the mutant, who returns with a snarl, huffing, ignoring and paying no mind to any of that. There was much more important matters on another student's mind. Who cares about all that? Minoru tosses aside, taking a bite of his food. What's more important? The girls. Those two, the ginger and pink one. They say America is the home of Lady Liberty, and it seems Lady Liberty has come here. He smiles lewdly, followed by a dreamy and dark snicker. I wonder what their costume will look like. Oh, he rubs his hands together at the erotic that began to manifest in his mind. It showed on his face. Just think. His hands out in the air, squeezing nothing. Yes, his fellow classmate sitting with him just looks on, sadly disturbed, shaking his head. Pushes his tray away, unable to eat. Izuku felt doing the same thing too. He wasn't hungry as he should be. His eyes on the maize purple container he brought with him. Feeling it was best he not leave in class. He honestly expected her to return back within an hour. But she didn't, and Mr. Aizawa didn't bother to send anyone to look for her as he fell asleep. Not even when woke up either. She was lost. He had no doubt about that. Question was, where was she lost at? Looking to April, she too didn't seem to be in the mood for eating. She sat next to him, eyes closed, besides the slight flash of light blue under her lids. Was she using her quirk? She had to be. Though which one? The mind talking or mind moving? He never did really ask her what it was called. That would have to wait. What is she doing? Hiroaka asked, looking at April, with raised brow and tilted head. She's been like that for 10 minutes, her friend Ida said, fixing his glasses studiously. To be exact, the moment we sat down to get our lunches, and after I of course managed to pull myself together after the loss of not winning class representative. He pauses to hold himself together from his defeat. Not all conceiving. Collecting himself, returns back to normal. Whatever she's doing clearly is taking up her attention from us, which is fine, but at the same time is rude. I don't want to use this term, but he sighs. Americans, really. We have graciously invited her to eat at our table and she decides to ignore us, instead of engaging with us in talk. I understand how this is all new to her but does America not of the deck? His ranting broke April's concretion. Humors him by answering his ranting. If you want to know, she said flatly, directed at tall and serious muscular-looking teen. Eyes and all. He returns the look. I was just trying to search for my sister. Locate her. With my it still felt weird saying it. Quirk, I can normal find, we're connected like that. But I can't. Why? Hiroaka wondered with interest. April turns to petite brown hair girl, sitting next to Ida. Her round brown eyes waiting and wanting to know. Because she or better were not really in range of each other. Hiroaka wasn't fully following. So April added further explanation, using her two-pointer fingers to demonstrate. We have to be in a certain radius in order for it work. We can sense the other one. We link in a sense. But if we're not, then we can't sense anything. Interesting, Ida said, rather amazed. So that must be your quirk. Telephone, he assumes. What? April cocks a brow at him, looking him up and down. Telephone? Why would no? That's not at all. To his surprise. Really? Well, it would seem like it would. The way you described it and all. You and your sister able to sense the other. It would be an interesting quirk, though not one that would classify either of you as heroes. More like sidekicks. Either way it. Hiroaka quickly shushes him. Hee, she chuckles nervously at April. Sorry about that. If that's not your quirk, then what is it? I mean, mine is zero gravity. She looks at her hands, mainly her fingertips. I can can make things float by touching them, then release them too. Gravity, April guessed. Wow, that's interesting. Kind of like my own really. See, she shows them. Izuku now his attention on her. With her hand held out, a faint light blue outlined her hand. She had directed at an empty chair or chairs. They watch as they lift up on their own. With a slight twirl of the wrist they spin around. And a light dip of the wrist they set back down in their spot. The blue faded from April's hand. The three were amazed. They were speechless. Hiroaka was grinning from ear to ear. That's so amazing. It's like mine. April smiles at her flattery. Thanks. Yeah, it's called, she thinks about it, mind over matter. Mr. Aizawa told me. I can, as you saw, move things with my mind or communicate or sense things with my mind. Though not simultaneously, one or the other. If I do try to use them together or exceed too much, then I kind of unpleasant migraines. Those aren't fun. That's pretty cool, Izuku praises, speaking up. So, that was why you weren't really that worried about finding your sister in class. Were you trying to locate her then? April nods. Yeah, but I didn't. Her voice drops with worry. She's still lost. I know it, and well a bit, she whistles. Even back home when we went to school. Nay well, she got lost too. Since she was close, I was able to find her. But this school is so vast. Her eyes drown in her udon noodles. Who knows? Izuku looks to his friends. They all felt for April. I'm sure she'll find her way. Hiroaka assures her. Since you're sisters and you both share that bond, there's no doubt in my mind that she won't find you. Speaking of which, Ida adds, please don't take this in any sort of offensive way. But, as you said, he adjusts his glasses. The two of you are sisters. April nods, trying to figure out where he was getting at. How exactly are you both sisters? If you don't mind me asking. And asking was what you've been doing right now. Still a bit lost. At least you made it down a few floors. Still, you hadn't found your sister or class. Calling for her didn't seem to work, nor peeping into other rooms. The few students hanging around, you went up to them to ask. But none of them seemed to know or wanted to say anything. So you moved on to the next one and next one, describing your sister in class, a description that caused quite a few to be lost and confused. Feeling defeated, sigh and slump down on the steps, your stomach growled. Just a bit. Wonderful, you were in need of fuel, and you didn't have any at this. Groaning, bury your face in the clothes on your lap. Didn't notice or realize someone walking over, till they spoke to you. Hey, you're that new girl, aren't you? A deep calm voice asked. Are you lost? Lifting your head, meet aloof heterochromia eyes, one of gray and the other turquoise, staring at you. Belonged to a relatively tall teenage boy around Izuku's and nearly everyone's age in class, including your own, with short two-tone hair evenly split down the middle, white on one side and red on the other. There was burned scar over his left eye. You weren't sure who he was, but it seemed that he knew who you were. You hadn't answered his question, so he repeats it. You're that new girl from America, right? You nod. He repeats the rest. Are you lost? You give it a thought, a pretty long thought, slightly testing his patience. It came out in a sigh that was interrupted by the growling of your stomach. His eyes drop to it. Instantly your arms wrap around it and you fall over a bit. Let me guess, you're hungry too. He sighs, shoving his hands in his pockets. How long have been? Never mind. He self-answers the question. So you are lost and you've been in these halls for quite some time. No wonder you never made it back to class. The second he mentioned class, you sprung from your spot, startling him. He nearly stumbled back if he didn't catch his footing. You are from class of 1A? You asked with a joyful smile. It was rather smothering. Yes, he answers, throwing your arms up, happy to hear, jump up and remain floating. To his surprise, even more so when you instantly grabbed his hands in yours, squeezing them, and getting rather in his personal space, causing him to jerk back slightly. I am pleased to hear that, you exclaim rather loud, causing a few heads to turn and see. It is wonderful to see a familiar face. You stop for a moment. Well, not an actual familiar face, since I did not get a chance to register your facial recognition within my memory bank. You began to trail off, but nonetheless it is truly wonderful. I am May O'Neill, and you are. His mouth closes for a moment, looks down. Can I have my hands back? He asked, looking down too. You had forgotten about that and let them go. Settle yourself back to the ground. I apologize. I can get rather excited at times. But, please, you calm down. Your name. Your stomach growls at that exact moment. He was about to answer. It growls again when he tries again. And your whining didn't help. Or hungry body tremors either. He sighs. Lunch was soon wrapping up and you needed something. Turning away from you, looks around the hall. Spot across the way a vending machine. Thumbs over to it. Hey, come on, there's a vending machine over there. He informs you. Following the direction he pointed, see it. Smile. Fuel. Hoping down the few stairs, walk to it. Staggering a bit. Manage and continue walking. Noticing the lack of energy in you and fearing something else, he decides to follow you, just to be safe. A choice that was right, because the second you reached the vending machine, you had no money. Of course, taking out some money himself treats you. What do you want? He asked. There were so many selection to choose from. It was hard to choose. You wanted something from the top row, then something from the middle and two things from the last. There was also something to drink too. You needed to get stuck on a decision. Finally make it. That one, please. Point to the item in the middle of the row. Press the combination, and just as it started to come, a warning alarm blared all throughout the school. The alarm was nothing more than falsity that sent the whole school in a panic. Once it was quickly cleared up, everything settled back to normal. All was well and smooth. Nothing but the press, still, false or not, didn't stop the fear that clutched Splinter's racing heart. Immediately he sprung from where he was, sprinted to see the cause for the danger. Quickly comes to it, finding nearly most of the faculty standing at the front of the school's entrance, before the disintegrated barrier. His heart froze, not just at the sight but from what his ears heard before fully reaching them, from Nezu. How are ordinary members of the press able to bypass our security systems? Some else must have been behind this. He speculates. Some villain was able to infiltrate our school. Was this purely a show of power, or declaration of war? War, Splinter shouted. Heads turn to the mutant. His eyes fall straight to Nezu like a sharp arrow of fire. Ah, brother, Nezu calmly addresses him. It seems. What war? Splinter snarled, teeth and all. A look that surprised the others. What war do you speak of, Nezu-sama? He asked again with thinning patience. The question remained unanswered for a moment, and in that moment Nezu's mind quickly sorted through the right words to say to the Hamato. Choosing the wrong one would surely cost him. Choosing the right one would further cause the rat to seek more questions. As his eyes keen, so was his mind. So there seemed to be no right way in which to respond. Taking a breath, the words come to Nezu. Clearly I had chosen the wrong words to speak. I did not mean to alarm you. He apologizes, under Splinter's studying gaze. Then what words did you meant? Splinter's voice sharply rising. His body had begun to tremble slightly. My sons are here, they must not be ... He catches himself in anger flaring, takes a deep breath, collecting himself. Nezu-sama words trailing to the side, along with his eyes. Fear was pinched in his dark reddish eyes, noticed by the others, but there was someone else who noticed something behind it. Their eyes narrow slightly, trail down to the mutant's clenched fist, hidden behind his back. Walking to the mutant, Nezu rests a paw on his forearm. Brother, I promise you there is nothing to worry about. There is no war in which I would ever involve your precious sons. Or you for that matter. What of the press? Splinter rounded back. I was informed it was the press. Have they ... been aware of our return? My family's return. Another second silence from the principal. No, they have not. As I assured you before the start of this grand new life of yours, the return of your family has remained within these walls of UA. You and your family shall live in peace. The press nor the media has not been informed. You shall remain safe. It shall not happen again. Splinter's ears steadily take in the words, and eyes observantly take in his mannerism. Not a single hair fur flinched or pricked that he could see. Calming his still racing heart, gives a nod. Relieved. I trust you, Nezu-sama. Splinter reminds him, turning around to the school in the direction his son's classroom was. All that I have given up. I trust you will hold well with your promise and words. The subtle sharpness in his words barred in the tightness of his calm voice, that flashed for a second in his eyes. Patting his forearm, Nezu nods. I promise, brother, nothing shall come. Your sons and pupils are under the best watchful eyes. Under eyes indeed, 2 pairs, big round green ones and cat-shaped onyx ones. On the Americans in class, Momo's on the brothers sitting before her. Izuku on the 2 sisters, thank goodness too. After what happened with the alarm, Mei finally came back, brought to the room by Shota. After listening to Mei tell them about it all, her lost in the school, and during lunch to nearly becoming drowned in the panic wave of students, she and Shota managed to avoid it. Thanks to him. After it settled, they came to class, where Izuku, his friends, and April found her with her hand iced on the wall, to keep her from wandering off. She was thrilled and happy to see her sister and Izuku, instantly saying in a way that flushed his cheeks with embarrassment and caused eyes to look at him questionably. Izuku-chan. Of course he knew she didn't mean it in such a way, she was just trying to be formal or respectable. Either way, the smile she had on didn't help either, and when she threw her arms around him, made those eyes furrow with more questions. Not to mention his own reaction. Didn't help, the way he just froze stiffly from her hold and touch. Not to mention their touching cheeks she pressed together. April, seeing the whole thing, didn't think much of it. Instead she laughed a little at it. How she found amusement in it was beyond him. Even their other American friends. The temperamental one even cracked a smile. Why Mei was so glad to see him again was beyond him. He was glad she was safe too. The churning knot in his stomach could finally untie. Unsure though how to pry Mei off from around him. Her grip was rather tight, he noticed, cause his shoulders still felt a bit sore from her wrapping grip. It ended the moment Mr. Aizawa appeared and reprimanded Mei for being hours late back to class, threatening her on what would happen again if she did it again. Adding something else that even sent a shiver down Izuku's own spine if she didn't get into class. She released him instantly and hurried in. Though took a second to find her seat, which she hoped it would be by April, finding out it wasn't. Or him either. Instead it was by Kirishima, where she sat attentively listening to every word that came from Mr. Aizawa. Her eyes, he noticed, seemed to brighten, or was it shine excitedly? He was sure for a moment they glowed. I'm glad she's enjoying it, he said, smiling to himself. Turns to April, who unlike her sister was more relaxed, cheek resting on her hand. With a slight yawn in her eyes, stop feeling his eyes. Meets them. Izuku flinched slightly. April smiled with a light snicker. Her eyes started to faintly glow light blue for a second. Don't be so jumpy. He hears her in his mind. He flinched a bit. Still wasn't much used to her quirk. Gives a sheepish smile, scratching his cheek just a bit. Sorry. She shushes him, both with a finger and mind. Look forward, otherwise Mr. Aizawa is going to catch on. He turns back to the teacher. Keep your focus on him. Anyway, wanted to say sorry about Mei. With the way she greeted you. His eyes almost moved back to her. If she didn't hush him sternly. She kept going. She is just, well, very affectionate. Expressive if you ask me. But that's just how she is. She doesn't meant much behind it, as you can see. He notices her eyes cast past him to his sister, now with a hand outstretched up, followed by her body. Almost knocked over her desk. Leo and his brothers watch their friend. Mikey snickering a bit, kicking back. Feet on the desk and all. Points to her. Haha, Maze at it again, guys. He looks to his brothers, each of them with a long face. Sighing, Mr. Aizawa's eyes tiredly move up and down at the bright girl's waved hand. He hadn't even bothered to ask a question, only told announced halfway to the students about today. The participation in some rescue exercises for basic hero training. Clearly seeing he would not be able to continue unless you've been settled. The urgency was becoming pressuring. Grunting, he points. Yes, your hand lowers. Now calm, clear your throat. Aizawa-sensei, you move from behind your desk to him. The student's eyes follow, confused. Reaching the spot, lean over just a bit, looking directly the shaggy man. Smiles and all. He didn't return the feeling. This exercise you speak of, consisting of natural disaster, your eyes fall with a questioning confusion. Stare out the window a moment. How can there be such an exercise, when clearly outside the day is filled with skies of clear and rays of sun? Also, the other instruction in which you speak of, would that happen to be Mr. Splinter, our sensei? He opens his mouth a bit to answer, but you kept going. With these natural disasters, I do not mean to sound, what was the correct word? It was there on the tip of your tongue. Good thing someone blurted out, helping you. Awesome. Mikey's voice filled the room. Mikey. Donnie hisses him to hush, flicking his forehead. Nodding absently, you agree. A correct word? Yes. Lightly touch the tips of your fingers together. Still smiling. My Nyai-chan as well, my friends, and I have handled many types of calamities. Turn to each of them. Ignoring Leo's throat-cutting gestures, Raph's stern hushing fingers, and Donnie's lip zipping. Even April's mental shush. Mikey though jumps up boastfully, adding more, coming over. With a swag-like walk. Yeah, was handle many things, teach. Teach. Aizawa's brow snapped. Mikey nods, completely ignoring it, and kept speaking, something his brothers and Momo wished he hadn't. We've handled armies of ninjas. He begins to list the triumphs, like multiple times. Dudes were good, but he snickers, hands behind his head. We was better, yo. We also fought bad hidden mutants that we might have been the cause of creating. We fought some hidden nasty aliens, like teeth and all. Dudes looked like brains with teeth. All the while as he talked, proudly, Aizawa cared less, more irritated than anything. The room could feel it. The students could feel the man's rising and shorting fuse. Donnie and Leo tried to call out to Mikey, but he didn't stop. Wide smile and all on his freckled cheeks. Momo was tempted to make something to cover his mouth. Instead she stared baffled. Izuku did the same with Mei, who just stood there nodding. He looks to April, who now buried her face in her hands. Clearly there was nothing that could be done. After a few more words, Mikey finished and you took over. As my friend has. Best friend. Mikey makes notice, proudly. Yes, you agree. As I correct myself, best friend has informed you. We have been through quite a trial of disasters, and have come out well due to our training. I wish to know if there is any reason as to why must participate in such a exercise. Do not get me wrong. God, someone groans. She sure talks as she autocorrect. What the heck are they both doing? Though this experience sounds quite interesting if not wonderful, it does seem like something that we have done before. So I ask again, you present questioning. Must we, and why must we participate in such an exercise? Again, I am not trying to sound in a pedigree sort of way. I just would like to know. Also, you hold the folded uniform. I have forgotten to give this to my sister. Looking from you to Mikey lazily, Aizawa's eyes drop to the side for a moment. Come back, looking straight through the two of you, back to the rest of the class. What you wear in this exercise if up to you. I know you're excited about costumes, but he holds up a small remote. Deceive presses the button, activating slots in the wall to come out, metal cases, containers with large lime green numbers on them to come out. April lowers her hands at the sight and the rest of what Aizawa said. Keep in mind you haven't gotten used to them yet, so they might limit your abilities. This special training if on an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus. You kindly interrupt him. Excuse me, Aizawa, but I have no need for transportation. I am able to transport myself via self-flight. You have seen it. There. He ignores you, your words. Mikey too walks away, dismissing everyone. That's all, get ready. The students rose from their seats. Momo noticed the brothers hadn't. It took a moment for to realize why, noticing their eyes now on the metal containers. Our costumes are placed in there. She informs them. They look at her, standing by them. Each of us has number our costume is assigned to, with. I'm sure you remember before attending the report you had to send in, asking about your body specs. They give it a minute thought. Yeah, we had to do it before coming. Donnie said. It wanted to know about our quirk and draw or sketch what we believed would be best suitable for our wear. About a month before coming here. That is for your costume. Momo further adds. So it could be made before coming here. Do you know what number you are? The guys look at each other, then to her. It was clear they didn't. Not to worry, she was ready and prepared. Smiling, tells them to follow her. They do. She takes them over and carefully goes through finding their number. Leo was 21. Raph was 22. Donnie was 23. Mikey, who gawking over the prospect of costumes, drooling over another student's case, was number 24. Taking them down, Leo and his brothers hold it amazed. Momo gets hers down. It felt like a dream. Leo couldn't help but smile a little. Donnie grinned, nodding his head, while hoping they got his specs right. Raph groaned, wondering how this would fit his body. Mikey, finally called over, clung to his like a baby cola, panting. Sweet, he hums, nuzzling and stroking it. Raph walks over to him with a hand raised and smacks the back of his head. Stop acting weird, Mikey, he barks. From her seat, April rolls her eyes at her friends before standing and walking over to the concentrated Izuku. She stops a foot away, cocking a brow at the young boy. His mind was strained on something, knowing she could easily find out, doesn't. Instead waves a hand before his face, bringing him back. His eyes find her. Are you in there, Izuku? She playfully said. It took him a minute to realize her reason and springs from his seat. I am so sorry. That's right, your costumes. He nearly deafens her, rubs her ear with an O. Not sure why you're jumpy, but I kind of need my hear, you know. So, looking past him at the metal cases still sticking out the wall with most of them gone except for a few. His eyes follow. Which one do we take? What was it that Izuku was told? He fumes, trying to remember the sisters' assigned number. If their friends already had theirs, then the last two, then 25 and 26, clearly belonged to April and May. Which one was the actual question? Scratching the back of his head, shuffles over to them. April following, though of course not without calling May over. On the way there, Izuku informs them about their costumes and what was done with the design they sent in. It fascinated both girls. May of course showed the most, stopping before the cases, waiting to see which one was there, twiddling his thumbs just a bit. April holds up a pointer finger to his forehead. I've got it, she said. Her eyes flash a blue hue. He felt that prickliness that felt a bit woozy. By the time he shook it off, both April and May had their cases. April even had his hoovering next to him. Okay, we're ready. Nodding, agreeing with your sister, smile. Yes, ready, though I wonder. Tapping a finger to your chin as you follow Izuku and April out the class to the locker rooms to change. Why, Aizawa-sensei did not address my informant of words. I just wanted to let him know that we have acquired skills and have done such a thing in form of rescue. And the reason behind us still participating in this exercise. Izuku and April had an idea as to why their teacher hadn't bothered to answer your question or what you said. Or at least April did. Izuku about to say something. April instantly covers his mouth. Just leave it, she said, removing her hand. She's just ranting, her way of being ticked off. To put it plainly, he looks back to you. Your mouth was still spilling out words. It didn't seem like there was any way you were or seemed ticked off. He couldn't hear it in your voice nor see it in your face. But your eyes, he noticed, did dart here and there, blinking more than normal. He wasn't sure if your mind was still trying to wrap around Mr. Aizawa or something else. It was odd, just a bit. But he couldn't help but smile to himself, turning back around. Feeling eyes on him, glances to the side a bit, finding April. See, told ya, she said with a soft laughter from her throat. He turns back again at you, this time looking closer, and saw it. Momo saw it written all over the brothers' whitened faces at the locker room. They each clutched their cases with white knuckles they tired to hid. Well, not Mikey, not that much. All of them swallowed the lump in their throats. Time was wasting and they needed to change, otherwise miss the exercise or worse, face their teacher. She didn't want to be rude or disrespectful either, being as accommodating as she could with them. During all this, the questions came to her mind again, wanting to come out. But she pushed them aside. Now was not the time. Stepping to them, resting a light touch on Leo's shoulder. His eyes instantly went to hers. She nearly flinched at what she saw in his eyes. That surprised her for a second. Her own eyes quietly listen. Finding the right words, she gets ready to say them. For Mikey to talk over her. Can we go in now, bros? He addresses his brothers. We get to actually be able to dress in locker room. Just think of all the towel whipping we can do. Or we can even turn on all the showers. Let's get our game faces on. Yeah, thrusting a fist in the air, rushes right in. Mikey. Donnie tries to grab him, seconds too late. Leo, he turns to the eldest. Drawing a breath, Leo quickly collects himself. Might as well. The sooner we get this over with, the better. So, he turns to Momo, directing the words to her. Once we're done, just meet up at the front, right? With everyone, right? She nods. Yes, I'll see you and your brothers there, should you finish dressing before me. There's nothing to worry about, Leonardo. Now, we should hurry up. With those words, she bids a minor farewell and heads into the girls' locker room. The guys take a moment and enter the boys. Raph trailed behind. The second Leo who lead pushes the door open. All of them heard Mikey's booming laughter and voice fill the room, along with Ida's chiding him on what he was doing. Instantly rushed and screaming his name at whatever he was doing. The girls could hear the commotion going on next door, pausing them for a moment from changing their eyes on the wall in the direction of the noise. Americans sure are rather loud, aren't they? Suyu opined. Returned back to changing. The others do the same, except one who lingered a bit and couldn't help but snicker to herself. Stops again like the rest when the door opens and they hear added voices walking over. All eyes turned to April and you the moment the two of you entered. Silence washed over for about a second. April, Uraraka bubbled, breaking the silence, welcoming her. April gives a wave. The two of them exchange smiles. Walks over to her. Hey Chaco. Whoa, nice costume. April steps back to admire the girl's pink and black skin-tight suit with pink knee-high boots. Taps a finger on her pink thick round handles. Thanks. She blushes a bit, notices you behind her. Welcomes you. Hey, May, right. You freeze for a moment and nod with lowered eyes. She couldn't help but laugh just a bit. She's so different compared to in class. Uraraka noticed, still giggling. Ready to change. I can't wait to see your costume. She returns back to April. Holding up her case, April smirks. Yeah, come on May, let's get changed. Setting her case down on the bench, some of the other girls done or partial come over to see the minute April clicks it open. Uraraka's eyes widen, amazed at it. A huge smile spread across her face. She could barely hold it in. Jumped up and down. It's cool, she praised. April takes it out and admires it herself, pleased with a bit of nervousness. This was much different than what she wore back in New York, when she was Kunoichi. Her thumb softly creases the material. They managed to get everything right. Honestly, she was just being daring when she did this. Thinking of what her father would say or react upon seeing this, even Master Splinter. It seemed like a good mix between ninja style and hero. Feeling herself glow with joy, sets the costume down and starts to change. The others return back finish. One of them noticed a certain golden yellow eye girl hadn't started. Finishing up with changing, they walk over. Point a finger at your case. Aren't you going to change? Ribbit, Suyu asked. You look at the short frog-like looking girl, dressed in her costume, whose rather wide black eyes stared into yours. Opening your mouth, close it quickly. Tighten your hold on the case. She noticed, about to say something when cheers from Uraraka took her attention and yours. To April, who had her costume on for the first time, your eyes marveled at her looking so. You look great. Uraraka praises, clapping. Despite the light tint of red on April's cheeks, she couldn't help but admire herself too. Spinning around a bit. Come on. Uraraka takes over to a mirror where a few of the girls followed. One of them was the invisible girl, who joined in complimenting April, whining just a little. She wished to have something like April. Other than that, liked it. She wasn't the only one. From her reflection, April's eyes trail her body, flickered with thrill. Sleeveless high collar, dark navy blue full body suit, the bottom shorts, yellow trimming along the edge, with a hood seamlessly attached, with metallic covering on her arms and metallic boots. With the hood off reveled a silver diadem with a small circular stone upon her brow, and a small yellow sash around the waist, just for look, and a small dark holster for her fan attached around her thigh. It was perfect, the fabric breathable and movable too. It wasn't too tight, felt like it wasn't even on. Mobility was important, lightly touching the center of the diadem, relieved to have it. While keeping fingers crossed it would work and help. Moving her hand down to the collar, finding it a bit loose, pulls it up, covering half of her face. Ninja and hero elements combined together. Awesome. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Raven 716 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.